Hello, my name is Alex van Gestel. I am the Vice President of Consumer Products at EPAM. What I'm going to be doing over the next few minutes is just talking about some of the trends that we're seeing in the marketplace as it relates to consumer packaged goods and retail and consumers in general, and also the role that technology is increasingly playing in managing the post-pandemic world. So a little bit of an introduction. I represent EPAM Continuum. EPAM Continuum is EPAM's consulting arm, really focused on business and data consulting and innovation. And really what we've been doing over the last 18 months is tracking the market, looking for insights and trends and behaviors to elicit where companies and enterprises may begin to take it. A lot of people are talking about the next normal or the new normal. And I think what's fascinating right now is that no one really knows what is going to happen in the next year, the next 2 years, the next 5 years. Pundits beware, we are truly in unprecedented times. And we really are navigating uncharted waters. Uncharted waters in the sense that there's such significant shifts in terms of consumer attitudes and behaviors, and what people are doing today is not necessarily reflective of what they'll be doing tomorrow. So how consumers are changing, what is emergent and what's here to stay is very much anyone's guess. What I hope to do in the next few minutes is to kind of just illuminate as to kind of 8 of the big trends that we're seeing in the market that will inform proposition development and solutions. The consumer environment is changing more rapidly, I think, than anyone could have predicted or anyone might have anticipated. We've got so much uncertainty in the market, so many things that are happening in terms of relationships that brands had built for hundreds of years that are now being disrupted. So what we did about a year ago was we started to really track consumers, track their behaviors, track their attitudes and their needs and wants in a number of studies. The first one's called the Consumers Unmasked. And with the Consumers Unmasked, we really looked at consumers across multiple markets to understand, where they are today and where they might be tomorrow. The second piece of research we did was around financial services and consumer banking, specifically trying to illuminate how people are changing the nature of their financial management, what they need in terms of control, and so on and so forth. The third area is around what we call blend space, which is really the blend of bricks and mortar and online commerce, and really looking at the kind of acceleration of e-commerce and how that's affecting bricks and mortar and what might be the role of bricks and mortar in the future. And then the fourth area that we'll touch on today, we won't go into detail, is really what it means for business. And at the end of this presentation, we'll provide some links to all 4 of those reports. So let's get into some of the insights. The first insight is around value. So whatever else matters, value matters more. This is really fundamental. It's not just value in terms of price. It's not just value in terms of what people would call the value equation, but it's a new bundled concept around value, around affordability, about convenience, around delivery, location, etc. So value really as an entire proposition, is very, very fundamental. And what we're seeing almost with consumers is they see achieving value as a badge of honor. And so whether that's the time they've had to search online, the time they've had to almost become perfect in their knowledge around a particular product category or service, is very, very interesting. It's a new way of pre-shopping, shopping, and then obviously the post-shopping experience. The second kind of insight area is really that ethics, which obviously was a big, big topic for consumers and for businesses before COVID, before the pandemic. It's now really climbing the leaderboard. Ethics is climbing the leaderboard in the sense that if all else is equal in terms of value, ethics really helps drive that extra bit of preference for a brand or for a service. And what we're seeing is that obviously there's controversy around ethics. So many companies accused of greenwashing, many companies almost paying lip service to ethics, but it's really those brands that have true values that are really showing through in terms of their actions, not just their words, are tipping the balance there. And I think the other point obviously is that the social movements within this whole ethical sphere is also important. So really ethics climbing the leaderboard and very much a pervasive, emergent trend coming out of the pandemic, which will help brands differentiate. The third area that we've been seeing rise dramatically is this emergence of new technologies, and specifically around the customer experience. So the customer experience, there's been so much innovation just within the past 6 months around service, around delivery, about curbside, restaurants. The models have been disrupted, and obviously people who are at home are now looking for new solutions. People who are working hybrid are looking for new solutions, and so a huge amount of expectation now around customer innovation, around service delivery, and these models are very much here to stay. And the fourth point, which kind of relates to the third point, is that education equals experience. And if we talk to millennials, we talk to Gen Z, they really are opening up around this notion of experience, but it's tethered to education. It's tethered to the fact that they want to learn, they want to take control of their finances, they want to read up on the details of what's in a bottle or what's in a package of food. And so really, this is an emergent and very strong current that's happening here, where both Gen Z and millennials are coming through saying, we really want education, and we're seeing the rise in education modules and training online and so on and so forth. And partly that's because people have had the time, they've been at home. But really, as they begin to look at CPG and retail, it's really helped me understand more about you, where you're coming from, what you believe in, what is your purpose. And that is really kind of crystallizing now, not just in terms of what people come to expect in terms of the actual product or service itself, but also what the brand and the company behind the brand is actually delivering for them, and actually what its role, how it sees itself within society. The fifth area, which won't be a surprise to anyone watching this, but some of the details within it might be, is that social really brought brands home. And so what we've been seeing is that brands are really connecting with consumers on their terms, really leaning into their passion points, really looking at the data and beginning to tailor much more specific content to their needs and wants, and also their context of how they're currently living within this moment in time and this crisis. And so what we've been seeing are a number of different ways at it. One of the things I love around the research was some of the richness of the quotes that came through. One music fan said, my local record store, and he's big into vinyl, started to do Facebook Live auctions, which I could participate in. And it was my way of kind of connecting back into the store environment, even though the store was closed. So we're seeing a lot of innovation that's bringing communities together around passion points, data playing a key role, but then also retailers getting smart in terms of how they can begin to act like CPGs, and CPGs being smart in terms of how they can begin to act like retailers using the power of social platforms and communities online. The sixth area we explored was this notion around subscriptions, and what we saw was really an extreme spectrum around subscriptions and subscription models. Subscription, as it relates to the fifth point around building community and bringing in that sense of belonging and really tying into my passion points, very, very powerful. And we've seen that in fitness with Peloton, we've seen that in cosmetics with Birchbox, and so on and so forth. So where people get that sense of really delivering against a benefit and a real inner desire or want, subscription is playing a very, very important role in people's lives, and actually also extending friendships online through those kind of boxes or whatever those monthly meetings might be. So subscription, absolutely key. Obviously, a massive rise of subscription, but there is a watch out on the other side of the spectrum where subscription really becomes about something that's much more about delivery, purely about getting products to the door. Even some people saying, oh, well, my wine club is really just selling me more expensive wine, not really giving me any other utility or benefit beyond it. We'll see some of those businesses that we imagine tailoring off quite soon based on these insights. So there's a new menu of consumer behaviors that are shaping and forming, and these cover a kind of wheel, if you like, around community, around creative experiences, around subscription. We've talked about sustainability and ethics being really, really key, but getting much more deeper and meaningful for people. Education is absolutely about experience. The role of trust now, in terms of the role of brand and purpose, and really kind of delivering what you actually say and communicate out in the world. The role of physical and digital, and how those things are blending and coming together, and what's the role of a retailer versus a CPG, and a CPG versus a retailer, and how these begin to kind of collaborate in more meaningful ways for consumers. Really, really key. And then the role of partnerships as well, in terms of developing advice, because often people are listening to peers. They're actually trusting social platforms as much as their bank. So really, really important, this notion of partnerships in terms of driving trust, and also beginning to kind of establish loyalty and other areas, particularly around the last mile. So a kind of new menu of consumer behaviors, and want to really watch much more of that as we kind of share the reports, much more of that in terms of the insights. But what I wanted to do today was really just touch on 6 of the key ones that we saw that really inform these new behaviors, and obviously where we might want to begin to think and innovate against these new trends. So as a result of the pandemic and some of those insights and those emergent trends that we just very top line talked about, enterprises are taking stock. They're retooling, they are rethinking how they go to market, they are replatforming to a large degree in order to go direct to consumer, in order to tackle some of these new pervasive trends. So it's an interesting time. The pandemic hasn't changed many of the needs and wants and many of the relationships that brands have with their consumers. What it has changed is the speed, the routes to market, and how brands need to much more quickly innovate and adapt to what's out there, and really connect much more closely in terms of the emergent trends that are beginning to form. And what we're seeing is that enterprises are under a great deal of pressure to rethink the entire customer journey, as well as deal with critical challenges across the business, whether it's supply chain, whether it's fulfillment, and so on and so forth. So what we're seeing is this kind of acceleration to digital, if you like. Digital's always been there. A lot of these other areas around ethics and purpose and so on and so forth have always been there. But what we're seeing is a sharpening focus, and also a much more demanding consumer that is focused on customer experience, has come to expect a lot more than what they've had before. And as things evolve and how things change, as people get back into the workplace and hybrid really starts forming again. I think the other thing that's interesting here is that the business imperatives really we see around transformation are also accelerating. And so we've seen this mindset shift really from a manufacturer mentality to a retailer mentality within CPGs. We've seen a strategic shift, which is all around not just one size fits all, but really looking at it from a much more tailored, segmented, personalized perspective. And then the third area is also this kind of accelerated growth perspective, which really is about moving from that kind of single channel or multiple channel focus to taking an omni-channel approach around consumers in terms of how to engage and how to begin to kind of excite and delight in terms of the customer experience. If you are interested in any of our research, we have a QR code that links to the various reports, and we'd obviously be happy to get into more detail in the future. Thank you very much.